Hi there, I'm Vincent Boss and I provide dating and self-improvement advice. And in today's podcast, we're going to be discussing how Dumpees control dumper anxiety. I provide audio coaching for breakup recovery, trying to get an ex back, attracting someone new, and life coaching. Visit www.dateme.tips for more details. Please check your spam and junk folders if you are expecting an email from me. So now let's get back into today's podcast, and today we are discussing how Dumpees control dumper anxiety. So if you have been dumped and want to try to get your ex back, you need your ex to miss you. In today's podcast, I'll be discussing 3 ways you as a dumpee actually control your dumper's anxiety. So let's get straight into this, and point number 1 is you control your contact. So if you've been dumped, you will quickly realise you have very little control over your situation. You can only control the controllables. You can't control, for instance, what your ex is doing right now, but what you can control is your contact towards your ex. So when we consider about how a dumpee can control dumper anxiety, this is point number 1's link. If you control your contact in the appropriate way, you can influence your ex-dumper's anxiety. So although you can't be dictating and making sure your ex does this, that or the other, what you can do is influence their feelings by what you can control, which is ultimately yourself and your own behaviours. So point number 1 is you control your contact. So what in essence this means is that you have a choice. You either contact your ex or you don't. Now there may be instances where you need to contact your ex. Maybe, for instance, you have children together and you need to contact your ex about your child. That, of course, is something obvious, it's common sense, and it's what I would refer to as necessary contact. But if you don't have children together, if you don't work together, if you don't have a situation where you need to contact your ex because maybe there is one of their belongings at your house or something that you own at their house, whatever it may be, as long as it's not necessary, in my opinion, in most instances, you shouldn't be reaching out as a dumpee. And therefore, we see the options available to you. You can either contact your ex or you don't contact your ex. So if you contact your ex and it's for an unnecessary reason, you are automatically controlling your ex's anxiety by reducing it. Your ex-dumper isn't going to be feeling anxiety about potentially losing you from their life if they see you contacting them on a periodic basis. You might think, well, I've been dumped 4 months ago and I've reached out to my ex once a month. What's the biggie? Well, what I would be saying here is that even if it's only once a month, it doesn't really matter. Your ex-dumper knows you're just a stone's throw away. You're not far away from them, metaphorically, if not even physically, because they're going to be thinking and feeling that they only have to wait 3 to 4 weeks and you are going to likely be reaching out. So even if you think, well, I don't reach out much, if you reach out in a consistent way where they almost know what you're going to be doing, then this isn't going to help your cause in creating that anxiety for them to miss you. You can only get your ex back if they miss you, and they can't miss you if you're in their orbit. Now, as I said a little earlier, you might have to be. If you have children together, if you work in the same company, these might be instances and examples of where you have to come across each other in daily life. And if you were to do so, I would say keep this on point. Speak to your ex about your child and don't deviate from that point unless they try to change the conversation. At that point, of course, you want to go with the flow. But if your ex-dumper is just sending you a message about your child or just responding to something you ask, you need to keep it on that point and then end the conversation. Similarly, if you work together, keep it on point. You see what I'm saying here? Now, if this is unnecessary contact, if you reach out to your ex and you say, look, can we just get back together? And you've already asked them that 5 times since the breakup, what do you think that's going to be doing to your ex's mindset? They're going to realise that you're always there for them. They're going to realise that you are their safety net. They're going to realise that you are there for them if they ever decide they want to go back, which actually ironically means they're less likely to feel that way. If they know that you're there as their safety net, they can be brave and go off out into the world without fear of being alone, because they know you're there waiting for them. If you want to try and control the dumper anxiety, you need to control it in a way which benefits you, the dumpee, and that is to create anxiety. Now, generally speaking, it's not a nice thing to make somebody feel anxious, but when you're trying to get your ex back, you have two options. You can either make them feel that you're always there for them, and therefore they're never going to feel anxious, or you can make them feel that you're not necessarily there for them, and they can start to wonder about you, think about you, and ultimately feel anxious and start to miss you. Now, the way you would do this as a dumpee, fundamentally, is unless it's for a necessary reason, you should never be contacting your ex again unless they contact you first. Now, that is a generalised concept, and if you want specific, unique advice for your specific situation, then you may want to consider my audio coaching service, where me and you speak one-on-one about your specifics. Go to my website, www.dateme.tips, for more information about how I can become your coach and your teammate via my audio coaching service. But at the end of the day, if you decide to control your dumper's anxiety by contacting them, yes, you're controlling it, but you're not controlling it in a way to make them more anxious without you. You're actually making them feel more relaxed, more safe in the knowledge that you're always there for them. And at the end of the day, if you want them back, you need them to believe that you have gone for good. And you can only do that if in most instances you never contact them again unless they contact you first. So now let's get into point number 2 and the second point of today's podcast about how dumpees control dumper anxiety. And point number 2 is you control what you put into the world. Now what this represents is how you present yourself to the world. Every day you will be living your life. Are you living it in a way where people who see you, hear about you, know you, are going to be thinking that you are a confident person, that you're pushing forward, that you're somebody who's going to be achieving? Or on the other hand, are people who know you, hear about you and see you going to think that you're feeling really low, that you're not achieving your goals, that you're unlikely to be somebody who is pushing forward because at the end of the day, everybody who knows you actually realizes you're sitting at home alone because you can't move forward from your ex. If people believe that you're sitting at home alone, then this will ultimately, eventually, one way or the other, get back to your ex. And it's the same concept as point number 1. If your ex-dumper knows that you're sitting at home waiting for them, they've got no fear. The safety net is out there for them, waiting. They can go off into the world, do what they want to do. No worries, their dumpee is always there in the background. However, if you control what you put into the world by presenting yourself as somebody who is forward-thinking, living their life to the full, achieving goals, making new connections, trying new things, then anybody who knows you, sees you, hears about you, is going to be understanding that you are a forward-thinking person. Again, this is likely one way or the other to get back to your ex. Friends of friends, maybe relatives who know each other, quite possibly social media being the main way, but you can control what you put into the world. If you put yourself out there into the world and you're sharing it on social media, or other people are sharing it on social media, then if and when this gets back to your ex, they're going to realise that you're not waiting around. And this is where you can start to control dumper anxiety. If your ex-dumper believes that you might meet somebody new anytime soon, they're naturally going to start to feel more anxious. They're naturally going to start wondering about you, and that can go hand in hand with eventually missing you. Now, there is no 100% guaranteed way to get your ex back. Nothing works 100% of the time, and nothing fails 100% of the time. But what I can say is that those people who live their life in a way where they're trying new things, achieving goals, and making new connections, they are more likely to hear from their ex in the future. You know, I'm sure you've heard of the concept of people saying, why is it that an ex comes back when you move on? Okay, I'm sure you've heard of that theory. Now, for me, in my opinion, this isn't some type of mystical, magical situation. It's just a combination of time passing and you living your life to the full. The amount of time that passes, combined with how you live your life, will dictate the chances of your ex wanting to reach out to you and make contact. If, for instance, it's been 6 to 12 months since your breakup, you're living your life the right way, you're doing your thing, and you actually meet somebody new who, even though you weren't actually looking for somebody new, you've actually taken a liking to somebody. You're spending time with them, you've even gone on a few dates. At this point, for the first time since your breakup, you're actually considering the possibility that there could be a new person that's worthwhile in your life other than your ex. And then guess what happens? Out of the blue, your ex-dumper texts you. Now, you might be thinking it's this mystical concept, but ultimately it's just time passing with a combination of you living your life the right way. Now, however, if you decide to sit at home alone and this message gets back to your ex, but have you heard about your dumpee? They don't leave the house now, they don't mix with new people, they don't do anything really. That's not attractive. Not only isn't it attractive just in general terms, but as I keep saying, it showcases to your dumper that you are waiting for them. It's not attractive in any way, shape or form, and therefore they're less likely to miss you, they're less likely to reach out to you, and that's why the theory comes about that it's only when you move on that your ex-dumper will contact you. So now let's get into point number 3 and my final point of today's podcast about how dumpees control dumper anxiety. And point number 3 is you control gold membership. So when I say you control gold membership, we're talking about what people get from you as a person. So let's imagine how you treat your friends, how you treat your family, how you treated your ex. Now, you would likely treat different people in different ways. Now, some people might say, well, I treat everybody the same, okay? But you're still likely to treat your ex, when you was in a relationship together, as somebody a little bit more special. I'm absolutely convinced that most of you would say that. One example might be that you pay for some of their accounts. Maybe you lived together, maybe you shared accounts, maybe it was some type of TV streaming account, maybe it was some type of shopping account, maybe it was some type of contract for a mobile device perhaps. You see what I'm saying? You likely shared bills, maybe even you weren't living together and you were still paying for your ex in certain ways. Now, when I say you control gold membership, this is what I'm talking about. Gold membership of these types of things. An acquaintance of yours is not going to be somebody that you let share your streaming information, okay? You're not going to let them have access to your shopping account. They're not going to be somebody that you pay their phone contract for. An acquaintance is not going to have gold membership, but your ex likely did when you were in a relationship. Now, when they ended a relationship, some dumpees feel that the best way to try to get their ex back is to continue to pay for these things, to continue to allow their ex to have access to these things which I'm referring to as gold membership. Now, although I'm not saying that you should be cutting things off instantly, which creates a situation where maybe your ex loses out on their phone or something where things get really, really drastic and serious, I'm not saying you do these things instantly to cause deliberate trouble. Because at the end of the day, you don't want to be upsetting people even if they've dumped you. If they've dumped you and you want them back, the last thing you want to be doing is upsetting them 2-3 days after they've dumped you by cancelling their phone contract. What I would say, the more adult approach as I would present it, is to take your time over the coming days, weeks, but not necessarily months, about sorting these things out. I'm not saying you pay for these things ever more. I'm not saying that your ex-dumper doesn't get access to things for a few days or weeks as you sort out your situation. As I've just suggested, I think if you want to try to get your ex back, you don't want to be causing even more drama. And if you've been dumped at 9 p.m. one night and by 10 p.m. every single thing's cancelled, that of course looks like a bitter, angry response. You might think they deserve it, but what I would say would be a better use of your time is to try and think about your logical steps forward, what you're going to do next, and an opportunity to talk a few days or weeks down the line to sort these things out, because they need sorting out. Your ex shouldn't get gold membership months later. Okay, you shouldn't be paying for things months later. They shouldn't have access to things months later. But a few days or weeks down the line is natural, understandable, and pleasant. And even if you don't think they deserve it, if you want them back, you've got to show some level of self-control, even if you feel that they didn't. So my advice to you here is you control your gold membership. Don't cancel things instantly. It looks bitter, it looks angry, even if you feel you have a right to. But similarly, don't be used. Because if you keep these going forevermore, you're not going to get your ex back on the back of them. Okay? Your ex isn't going to come back because you pay their phone bill. You need to be thinking things logically. Yes, a few days or weeks to sort things out, but no more months later on. You don't want your ex feeling that they've got gold membership, because if they feel that they've got all the benefits of you without being in a relationship with you, why would they want to get back with you? You need to create distance, space, and an understanding that if they're not with you, they lose that gold membership, and that can create dumper anxiety. Ultimately, as a dumpee, you control your ex's anxiety. If you believe that this podcast has helped you, then please consider buying me a coffee. The link to do so is in the description.